CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to The World Today, live from CGTN in London. I'm Polly Middlehurst. Our top stories this hour. In Myanmar, funerals are held for the 114 people killed during protests against the military takeover. Also today, global trade suffers as the Suez Canal remains blocked. And here in the UK, a sharp fall in numbers. Britain's hedgehogs are officially listed as being vulnerable to the point of extinction. Now, defence ministers of 12 nations have issued a rare joint statement condemning Myanmar's military. It comes after more than 100 people were killed during Saturday's protests against the military takeover. The countries which issued the statement, which include the US and the UK, say the military should protect and not harm the people it serves. Martin Lowe has the latest now from Bangkok, and this report does contain graphic images which some viewers may find distressing.
The military seems determined to crush any opposition to its takeover of the country. The results are beyond shocking. This 5-year-old boy was shot in the head. It's claimed he was inside his own home when it happened. He died from his injuries. Killings continued on Sunday, after Saturday was named the bloodiest day so far. An activist group says 114 people were killed Saturday, including 40 in Mandalay and 27 in Yangon. Many were children. This baby, just 1 year old, was hit in the eye. When they are not shooting, soldiers beat and kick. Here they hurl a sandbag at a girl's head. In some areas there was fighting between the military and armed ethnic groups. The Karen National Union said it overran an army post near the Thai border, killing 10. Military jets retaliated with an airstrike that killed 3 and sent many more fleeing into the jungle. One ethnic leader called on countries to stop selling weapons to Myanmar. Across the border here in Thailand, where the government has strong links to its own military, there's a reluctance to interfere in what it sees as Myanmar's domestic affairs, though Thailand is standing by to evacuate its nationals if the situation worsens. The junta leader described opposition to the military as terrorism and said it was not acceptable. But UN Special Rapporteur Tom Andrews said the army was committing mass murder, and condemnation also came from the US and EU. Defence ministers from a dozen countries denounced the loss of life. The military says it took power after fraud in elections that saw the civilian party of Aung San Suu Kyi win by a wide margin. The country's election commission says there's no evidence of cheating. Protests continue almost daily, with well over 400 civilians reported killed. Martin Lowe, CGTN, Bangkok.
Now, day 6 of the drama in the Suez Canal. And the news is, well, nothing's really changed. The giant container ship, the Ever Given as it's called, all 400 metres and 200,000 tonnes of her, is still impossibly wedged across one of the world's busiest and most economically important waterways. Let's get the very latest now from Cairo. We're joined by our correspondent there, Adil Marouki. Adil, thanks very much for talking to us. So what is the latest at the moment, and how are they going to get this boat untrapped?
So, as you said, first of all, nothing has changed except for a very light of hope after the Suez Canal authorities chairman said that the boat is partially moving. Its rear end has been liberated from all sand obstructing the rudders and the propellers, and it has been moving about 30 degrees right and left, but the tip is still stuck in the canal's bank. Now the authorities are moving rapidly. They believe that today and tomorrow, as the tide rises, it will give them more flexibility to maneuver the ship, and hopefully just by relying on dredgers and tugboats, they can get the boat out without any harm in its structure, and therefore nothing should obstruct the Suez Canal again from passing all the ships that are now accumulating. Almost approaching 400 ships now are stranded on both sides.
And let's talk about that as you get that operational progress, if you like, on the ground and at the edge of that canal. What about the world holding its breath, waiting? Industry and commerce has ground to a standstill. What's the impact on global supply chains?
It's a huge impact. First of all, just to wrap it up, the Suez Canal is the main shipping waterway route to connect Western Europe to East Africa and Asia. So anything going from and to this huge part of the globe goes through the Suez Canal. Container ships represent about 50%, sorry, of the ships passing through the Suez Canal. That's 30% of the containers in the world go through the Suez Canal. So it does have an effect. We've already been seeing an increase in some of the main goods that go through the Suez Canal, like oil. East African coffee, for instance, has also been spiking in terms of prices, as there's no shortage in the markets yet, but people are betting on the shortage that might happen as the demand spikes with the supply souring because of the Suez Canal. As I told you earlier, about nearly 400 ships now are stranded. These are billions of dollars worth of good. We're talking about oil, chemicals, apparels, iron ore, and manufactured goods. All of these are stranded. So the longer it gets, it means that the shortage in the market will be felt, and therefore, of course, it will reflect on prices.
Adel Marouki for the moment. Thanks very much indeed. Well, let's talk now to a man who knows a thing or two about the sea. We're joined now by Captain John Noble, who's worked in commercial shipping for decades. John, you must be looking at this and thinking this is something that people have been predicting for a long time. But in terms of the pretty simple salvage job, as it looks to laymen like us, what are they doing there to free the ship?
Well, it is an unusual circumstance to have such a big ship in this position, and the bow, that's the front end of the ship, is well and truly stuck in this side of the canal bank. The stern is less stuck, as we heard, but the bow is where it all will have to happen. And what they're currently doing is they're using dredgers to try and move the material at the side of the canal. In other words, what they're really doing is digging a hole so the bow can be partially refloated or completely refloated, and the ship can then be swung into line with the canal path.
Legally, who's responsible then for this cost of this operation, and what kind of numbers are we talking about as a rough estimate?
Well, the question of who is going to pay for it is a little bit wide open. The ship will have two sorts of insurance. It'll have insurance for the damage to the ship itself. Then it will have mutual insurance for the liabilities the ship will incur because of this hold-up. And the market will be very international. I suspect the amounts of money involved will run to the hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion. We just don't know yet. It's far too soon to tell. All the ships that are waiting at each end of the canal may even have a claim for delay. The Suez Canal Authority themselves will have a claim against the ship for all the loss of traffic or reduction in traffic that may result from this incident.
We're looking at estimations of something like $9 billion worth of trade lost every day. So whatever it costs to get the ship out of these muddy sandbanks would seem to be a priority. And people now, John, very much focusing on the next high tide and indeed the currents in the Suez Canal. How much of a difference do you think they will be and make to efforts to dislodge the ship?
Oh, the tide or the difference in water level is very much a big factor. I dealt with a casualty in the Great Bitter Lakes some years ago, and we used the rise of water to help refloat that ship. We still had to lighten it. So this, as the water level rises, so the ground reaction of the ship on the seabed reduces. And the point is they need to get to a position where the ground reaction is sufficiently small that any tugs that are there to pull can do so. And at the end of the day, that is how it will work if the present system is going to work.
Captain John Noble, obviously a great deal of time to go on that story. We'll no doubt be back to you to talk more soon, but for the moment, thanks very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Let's take you to Spain now, and in what could have almost been pre-pandemic times. How about a massive music concert without any social distancing? Well, that's exactly what's taken place in Barcelona in Spain. Let's go straight there now and talk to Rahul Pathak, who's in the capital, Madrid. It seems very unlikely, Rahul. This is a government-approved concert. Was it a success?
On the face of it, it was an unqualified success. I mean, it was a 5,000 sellout, as you say. Euphoric atmosphere, as I'm sure you're looking at the pictures now. People just happy to doing something relatively normal again. Now, the Spanish indie group who are performing, Love of Lesbian, have been given special permission to perform in front of the 5,000 crowd. Remember, only 4 people are allowed to gather together in enclosed spaces in many places in Catalonia, so this is a huge step up. All fans, remember, had to pass a COVID test on the day of the concert to be allowed into the venue. But once they were in that venue, they didn't have to social distance. They just had to wear a mask at all times, apart from when they were eating or drinking in special designated areas. But the real test of success will be whether or not those measures will be enough to stop any future COVID-19 outbreaks amongst the people who've attended that concert. Now, if those measures have proven to have worked, and we will only know that in a couple of weeks' time, then that will be a huge boost to not just the music industry here in Spain, but across Europe, which has really been damaged by the pandemic. A recent survey by the Spanish Music Federation finding that the Europe music industry as a whole had lost 76% of its earnings in 2020.
And it's not just the entertainment sector that the Spanish government's looking at unlocking, if you like, to head back to pre-pandemic times. We understand plans are underway to pilot a 4-day working week in Spain. Is the rumour true?
It's more than a rumour. It's probably going to come into force in September, and Spain will become the first country in Europe to bring in a 4-day week nationwide. Its proponents say that the move will benefit the entire economy. People will be working less, but their wages, crucially, will not be affected. The 4-day week, the proponents say, will mean a 3-day weekend, of course, and that means Spaniards will have more leisure time to spend money. The plan is to spend money on 2 of their biggest industries, namely hospitality and tourism. So that's the plan. And also with people spending less time in the office and the factories, it will allow people to spend more time with their families, which will also help with their mental health. And that was one thing that we were hearing so much about during the lockdown, of how mental health was really being damaged by people being cooped up without seeing family and friends. And so this is thought to have helped that. And also, if you're not in an office, there's slightly less chance of you spreading the coronavirus infections if you have one. Now, there is a little bit of controversy here because they're using $59 million of EU money from that EU Coronavirus Recovery Fund to pay for all this. So there have been some accusations that Spain is using EU money to allow Spaniards to work less.
Just before you go, Rahul, heading south towards Andalusia, and some good news for the people of Gibraltar and indeed on the other side of the border.
That's right, yes. People in Gibraltar from today will not have to wear one of these whilst walking around outside. They will have to continue to wear masks in shops and when they're using public transport. That's because the infection rate has gone right down, because most of the 33,000 adult population has been vaccinated. The nighttime curfew has also been lifted, so restaurants and bars can stay open till 2 a.m. And it's quite a turnaround for Gibraltar, because this time last year they had one of the highest death tolls per head of population in the world, but now they have just 15 active COVID-19 cases.
Rahul Pathak in Madrid for the moment. Thanks very much indeed. Now, last night here in the UK, the clocks went forward, in fact, across the whole of Europe, meaning brighter evenings and longer days. But let's take a look at this. German clock collector. It meant for him a race against time. Every year, Werner Steckbach has to move 365 clocks 1 hour forward for daylight saving time. It's a time-consuming job, but because the clockaholic, as they like to call him, loves his clock so much, he says it's the perfect task for whiling away the hours. To see more, europe.cgtn.com. Still ahead here on CGTN's The World Today. The UK hits a vaccine milestone as England prepares to start easing restrictions.
Don't forget you can sign up to our daily newsletter. We bring you all the top business headlines straight to your inbox. So sign up for free at this address. CGTN. See the difference.
Patient after patient after patient. They take a long time to get better. They're the sickest patients we've ever seen.
It's a race against time because we can all see the threat that our NHS faces, the pressure it's under.
We're dealing with something we knew very little about.
Europe's first 2 epicentres in February have received their first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
Another day, another grim milestone for the UK in its fight against COVID-19. 100,000 people have now lost their lives after contracting the virus.
Welcome back. A reminder of our top stories on CGTN. Funerals are held in Myanmar for the 114 people killed during protests against the military takeover in the country. And efforts to unblock the Suez Canal continue as the shipping backlog grows. Now, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is continuing his tour of the Middle East with a visit to the United Arab Emirates. The UAE said it'll start producing coronavirus vaccines made by China's Sinopharm next month. The two sides also agreed to strengthen cooperation in energy, high-tech, finance and counter-terrorism. And on Saturday, Wang Yi met the president of Iran, and the two countries agreed a strategic deal covering a 25-year period. So the UK has now vaccinated 30 million people. That means that just under 60% of British adults have now had their first jab. England will take its first tentative steps towards easing restrictions on Monday, but NHS England's medical director has warned that does not mean the job is done. Nicole Johnston joins us now live from London. Nicole, a big day for England as it starts unlocking tomorrow then. Tell us more.
That's right. Sunday is the last day of the stay-at-home orders, and from Monday that shifts to stay local. But it's not a dramatic change in what we've seen in terms of restrictions. That won't happen until May. So from Monday, basically people will be allowed to meet outdoors up to 6 people, 2 families. Outdoor sporting facilities will reopen, but it won't be until the 12th of April at the earliest that we'll start to see outdoor dining for pubs and restaurants and the opening of non-essential shops. And then it won't be until May, again at the earliest, that we see indoor dining. So as the government has emphasised time and time again, it's a gradual, cautious reopening. They don't want to see a repeat of what happened last summer when there was a much quicker reopening and then the country was hit with another wave.
But the vaccine programme in the UK, nonetheless, Nicole, going full steam ahead. In terms of supply, is that momentum going to continue? There have been arguments, haven't there, about whether or not it'll dry up a little bit in April?
Yes, as you said, the vaccination program is the one bright spot that we've got here. More than 30 million people have been vaccinated, more than half of all adults in the UK, but they are expecting it to slow down in April, and that's because of a constraint on the supply of AstraZeneca vaccine coming from India. Some good news also for April, though. The Moderna vaccine will start to be distributed in the UK, so that should help the situation here, though. But the government is emphasising that it has set aside enough vaccine doses so that people who've already received their first dose will be able to get their second dose within 12 weeks.
Nicole Johnston, thanks very much indeed. Let's take a brief look then at some other news from around the world. At least 14 people have been wounded after a suspected double suicide attack on a Catholic church in Indonesia. The blast in Makassar happened as two people tried to enter the church at the end of a service for Palm Sunday, the first day of Easter week. Police confirmed the two attackers died. Hundreds of demonstrators have blocked the Dhaka-Chittagong highway in Bangladesh. It's part of widespread protests against the visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as well as the death of 4 anti-Modi protesters. Demonstrations began on Friday at the main mosque in the capital Dhaka and spread to several key districts of the city later. Thousands of climate protesters gathered in Paris on Sunday. They want more action from the French government as it prepares to discuss an environment bill in Parliament on Monday. And Facebook has frozen the page of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro for his violating of policies on spreading misinformation on COVID-19. Maduro had claimed that a herbal solution derived from thyme could cure the disease, but doctors say this claim is clearly not backed by science. Severe sandstorms have hit northern China, including the capital Beijing, for the second time in less than 2 weeks. The sand was so thick, the tops of some skyscrapers were obscured and people were forced to cover their eyes in the street. Now, a female snooker player from Hong Kong has become one of 2 women given the chance to compete in the sport's professional men's tour. Ngon Yi has been world champion 3 times, and as Richard Kimber reports, the 30-year-old hopes to inspire others to follow in her footsteps.
Mon Yi is preparing for her biggest ever challenge. She's already reached the top of the women's game, winning the World Championship 3 times and has previously held the #1 spot for over a year. Now snooker's governing body is giving her and the current world #1 and 12-time world champion Rhiannon Evans from the UK a place on the main men's tour for the next 2 years.
Oh, this is absolutely a dream come true, because I totally didn't expect this coming, especially after quiet years without much traveling and practicing for me.
She'll be only the 3rd woman to compete on the men's international tour, following previous inclusions for Evans and the dominant female professional in the 1980s and 90s, Alison Fisher.
Snooker has always been a male sport. I hope the appearance ladies on the main tour can attract the younger generations to the sports, either as a hobby or a career.
One of the contributors to On Yi's recent success are the facilities and coaching available here at the Hong Kong Sports Institute, where she's one of the city's elite-level athletes that are being supported to fulfil their potential.
The training program here has produced some of Hong Kong's top international successes in recent years, in sports ranging from snooker to swimming.
In our sport, billiard sports, I would say we have probably got one of the best setups in the world. You know, the athletes are financially looked after in terms of a grant from the government, which takes a lot of pressure off them. And then in the institute here, they are fortunate enough to get access to world-class coaching, nutritional advice, biomechanics, video analysis. So everything they need really to reach their full potential is at their fingertips, and the likes of On Yi have taken full advantage of that.
Wayne Griffiths has been coaching On Yi for 10 years. He says playing on the main men's tour will be a big challenge, but it's a great step forward for both her and for women's snooker.
To me, it's like a chicken and an egg. they're not going to be good enough to play on the tour unless they get a chance to play on the tour.
There's more good news for Hong Kong's future snooker stars. The sport is being reinstated to the Asian Games in 2030 after a 20-year absence from the competition. On Yi is hoping that by then she'll be one of many local female professionals making headlines at the very highest level. Richard Kimber for CGTN in Hong Kong.
Now, Britain's hedgehog population is sadly in sharp decline. Officially listed now as vulnerable to extinction, in fact. One conservation charity is encouraging the public, though, to step in and help by making private gardens more hedgehog-friendly. Kitty Logan has this report.
Sometimes wildlife needs a helping hand to survive, and human friends can make all the difference. Hedgehogs love a late-night snack, left out for them to chew on after dark. These popular prickly creatures need our support. They're under threat, classified as vulnerable to extinction in Britain. In recent years, around half the hedgehog population vanished from the countryside. Loss of hedgerows and wooded areas has led to their demise, and thousands die on roads each year. Hedgehogs thrive in urban areas too, but the population here is also down by a third.
So in our towns and cities, it's very much sort of urban expansion. So there's more and more buildings, developments, roads, all of these things that, you know, cause danger for hedgehogs and also break up any areas of good habitat that are available. They can't sort of move around easily within the environment.
A man-made gap in a garden fence is freedom for a hedgehog. This nocturnal creature can cover 2 kilometres every night, exploring gardens as people sleep. Conservationists want to encourage residents to protect visiting hedgehogs. The Hedgehog Street project is now in its 10th year, with a positive public response. 90,000 volunteers have adapted gardens into hedgehog-friendly spaces, providing shelter for hedgehogs to safely hibernate in winter, offering clean water for them to drink easily. A small number of hedgehogs are found in central London parks too. Here, there are hidden measures in place to protect them. This thick undergrowth creates the ideal habitat, and rows of bespoke nesting boxes encourages them to breed. There are special access ramps too, so they can reach water. By offering the ideal hedgehog habitat, conservationists hope numbers will rise.
The good thing about hedgehogs is that because they are so generalist, if we can just make the landscape a little bit more linked up, if we can make it a bit more hedgehog friendly, then actually there's every chance that we can turn things around and make the UK a really good sort of hedgehog haven.
But for more youngsters to emerge in future, hedgehogs will be seeking friendly human hosts to welcome them into gardens. Kitty Logan, CGTN, Bedfordshire.
You're watching CGTN. A final look now at our top story today. Funerals have been held in Myanmar for some of the 114 people killed during protests against the military takeover in the country. And that's just about it for the world today. Thanks very much for watching. We're available on smart TV apps such as Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV. You can also find us on YouTube and Dailymotion as well, and of course at cgtn.com and on the CGTN app. But for now, from all the team here in London, goodbye. Thanks for watching.